Snowflower indeed, Mr. Plasm. Into Champion Select, ladies and gentlemen. G2 Esports versus SuperMassive, already getting into the thick of it. Gragas, Kai'Sa banned away. The Heimerdinger, no surprises. Hjarnardinger is the EU Heimer god.
Damn, they watched our gauntlet.
They watched any EU LCS ever. Ah, dang.
They've ruined our secrets. All right, so G2, they're banning some pretty standard stuff right now, taking Stomage away from his Gragas. Remember that Stomage, he likes to play things like the Trundle, the Nocturne, a couple of other aggressive stuff as well. And G2 just said, okay, we'll take you off of like the most meta thing out of all of them right now in the Gragas. We know that Trundle was nerfed. We don't think that Nocturne is that good. And they've left Akali up. And you know what? Perkz loves assassins. You go back to the Gauntlet, you think back to their series versus Splice, and he had a fantastic performance, finding multiple solo kills on this champion. This is a man that loves to outplay his opposition, and going into this matchup, I'm sure he's more than happy to play it.
And that was a game where Perkz almost put the entire team on his back when other members were struggling. Ultimately, it was a loss for G2, but that is a lethal champion in the hands of Perkz, as you highlighted. But now, Fabulous securing an early safe tank for himself in the top lane, and the Varus for Zeitnot. I love this pick in the hands of Zeitnot. SuperMassive plays so well as a team when they have that pushing bot lane.
Definitely a big comfort pick for him, and I think it's smart for G2 to take away the Alistar. They could also choose to lock in their bot lane as well. We know that Hjarnan does play a fair amount of the Xayah, the Ezreal, both fairly solid AD carries. Ashe is another potential option as well, something that he's brought a lot out during the regular season, but they may also save it for the second half of the draft, and they may look to prioritize their jungler right now. Things like the Olaf, and we've also seen Camille are pretty big comfort picks for Jankos, and it enables them to get a strong 2 versus 2 in terms of the mid-jungle duo.
And if you're a G2 fan, this is what you want to see. With Deed off the Tahm Kench on something aggressive, Jankos on the Olaf. This was how
lock it in, GBM.
G2 Esports won in the Gauntlet. It was a big shift in their team play style, showing us more than they had in the regular season. And GBM, he's trying to give us hints. What's the Akali counter pick going to be, my friend?
All right.
Okay, it's going to be a support.
He was just teasing. Remember, GBM has a very deep champion pool, and you're just showing off all the things he can play.
I was going to say, this guy's kind of like a mad genius of League of Legends. He tries a lot of things. I wondered if he had a special Akali answer. I'm really glad it's not Teemo, but Tahm Kench does get locked in, does ensure some safety, and for Snowflower, yet another pick that he is comfortable with and can influence the map with that ulti.
Yeah, it does reduce his playmaking potential, but it is also a big comfort pick for him. He's played it a lot during the regular season, and it also just provides extra peel for Zeitnot. And I think those two in these late game team fights are going to be really important to watch, assuming that they can get there, because G2 love to play through the early game, and so far they've drafted a pretty solid early game composition, and now they're trying to limit some of the mid lane champs that could pose a problem for the Akali.
So we taken off the board. Are they going to ban any of GBM's pocket picks? Will we see the Xerath taken off the board? I can't imagine so. We're going to have to see where G2 Esports' focus is. For now, on Suicide Supermassive, 80 carries are the name of the game. Jhin, maybe an Ashe to follow. Hjarnan has been pretty much exclusively good on utility very frequently in his career, but the Xayah going to be the takeaway here.
I'd quite like to see the Vladimir banned away from G2. Ooh, they're actually going to stick with the Trundle. All right. I mean, Trundle was considered a counter pick to the Olaf, brought out by Xerxes in the EU LCS, and they're showing that respect, but GBM's most played mid laner is actually the Vlad. I could see it being a pretty solid matchup into the Akali. Very difficult for the Akali to snowball into that lane. And I think that it also ties into the team fight power that SuperMassive often like to draft for themselves. You could lock it in now, save your jungler for the final pick, but instead they want to get themselves the Skarner pretty early on. So Somaj will be on something he can make a couple of early plays on, does fine into the Olaf, and is really good at locking down the Akali should she make her presence known in these later.
Which I absolutely love. Pull her out of that shroud. Everyone hates dealing with it, just pull her out. Second she uses an attack or an ability, but gonna have to see how much SuperMassive can do with this pick in the early game. Who's going to have the bigger early game impact between Jankos and Stomaj? G2, they do lock in the Tristana for Hjarnan. His hands on a hyper carry. It has looked good once or twice, but not always the role we expect Hjarnan to go into. Now, Warren, if it is the final pick, we'll put Wonder on that tank duty, but a comfortable matchup. One he's played many, many times, as has pretty much every top laner in any tank.
I mean, he was voted the all-star top laner, and you would expect him to be able to play anything. I feel like in the current meta, he's actually pretty happy because of all the bruises that we often see towards the top side of the map. But he's going to stick with the Ornn engage, tie that in with the Alistar, and G2, they have a pretty solid early game that they can play around, largely around the mid lane, with the Olaf that they've drafted themselves. But SuperMassive, they're trying to mitigate that early snowball potential. They've drafted themselves the Zillion. It pairs nicely up with the Skarner Engage because of all the bonus movement speed that you can give, and it gives some extra survivability for any target that the Akali is looking to try and assassinate.
And that was the big question. How do you answer this Akali? Giving up this first pick always feels incredibly risky. Gambit had some answers of their own yesterday. It looks like SuperMassive have the Zillion for their team. They have the Tahm Kench and the Skarner. A lot of tools to disrupt that assassin trying to get into the back line. But of course, Vedius, we always have to look at the early game. Who actually comes out on top here? You talked a bit about the jungle matchup. We know top lane tanks, they're going to do their thing. Talk to me about the rest of the map. Who do we expect to have the edge?
Well, you kind of look at Varus, Tahm Kench, and you would expect them to have pretty solid push towards the bot side of the map. They do pretty well into the Tristana and Alistar, who, while they do have pretty solid wave clear on the Tristana, you can't really gain lane pressure when it's Alistar into the Tahm. So you'd expect Hjarnad and Wadid to get pushed in early on, but we will see Wadid on a playmaker, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him roaming up towards the mid lane as well to try and get perks ahead so that he can be this big threat on a side lane. For SuperMassive, I feel like they're going to stick to a style that they often do, which is a little bit slower in the early game. They like to scale up. They rely a lot more on their team fighting prowess, and their team fight composition is very solid. The Zillion in there will offer a lot of mobility to a lot of the engage tools that they have. They hit a pretty solid mid-game spike at around 2 items, and I think that as long as they don't fall too far behind in the early game, they're set up quite nicely for these later game team fights.
Can they make it through the early game, though? That is the million-dollar question we see just about every single time, Vedius. And here we are loading up into game 2 of the day. G2 Esports, 3rd seed from Europe, going up against the TCL's 1st seed. Right into the pause. Brief pause here for a moment, but it gives us a chance to set some stakes, because we got to remember, this has not been an easy year for G2, Vedius. No. Being in the play-in stage is very foreign to them, and for a lot of G2 fans, they looked great in the gauntlet, but you got to remember, just before that moment, they were struggling. They were knocked out in quarters, and I think everyone is curious to see what exactly is going to...
Jankos had some
in
his
stuff
eye.
in his eye. All right, that's fair. I mean, that would be miserable.
He will remove the thing from his eye, and then he will play. We hope.
And that's the kind of stuff you want to get out of the way, right? You don't want... G2 fans are going to be like, is this the game where Jankos is going to have stuff in his eye again like he did for the entire second half of the regular season? And no is the answer.
To give context for anyone that may not have seen G2 Esports during the regular season, first half, they looked great. They
absolutely. Funnel was so good for them.
So good. Then Funnel disappeared. They still looked decent, but then the inconsistencies came through for Jankos. He didn't have the best performance. And as a result, G2 fell pretty rapidly down in the standings, finished 4th during the regular season after sitting at the top for so long. And then their playoffs, they got 3-0 by Misfits. So that's what we mean when they really didn't have a good split. And for G2 Esports, that's definitely not the kind of expectation that the organization has. But they smashed the gauntlet. They looked pretty solid. And expectations are now kind of elevated again. But there's always that essence of hesitation coming out from the side of G2. And for SuperMassive, you can say that they've kind of had the opposite, because they've had a pretty good year overall.
And you know, coming into their finals against Royal Bandits, a lot of people expected Royal Bandits to be the better team, but SuperMassive experience showed up strong for them, coming in clutch across the series, and you can see how strong, how historic this organization has been. 6 times in a row for the finals, 3 MSI's appearance, the first Worlds appearance, of course, and the roster the same from 2018 MSI, where they were putting up some great results.
Yes, they certainly were. They dominated their group. They ended up losing to the Vietnamese squad, and then they've kept this roster together, though, and I think it's really important to see how they grew throughout the regular season and how Zeitnot as a player has kind of developed as well, because the AD carry has really been one of the big carries for the team, and you only have to just look at some of his stats and see how far he has excelled within his own region.
And of course, when you look at G2 Esports on the opposite side, their bottom lane has a few points in the split, been a bit of a weak point. Now they are on the up and up, but with Zeitnot getting a dominant lane, with Snowflower getting a comfort pick, we're going to have to see how much impact this SuperMassive bottom lane can have here in the early to mid game. For now, though, we take a look at the level 1s, we take a look at the jungle starts. Both junglers appear to be starting on the top side. Perks aren't getting the bone plating procced, and GBM going to have comfortable use of that range advantage, at least for the first level.
Just looking across some of the runes, seeing if there's anything amiss. Yesterday, I missed the Aftershock Lissandra, so you've got to make sure you cover the basics, Dracos. Grass of the Undying actually being picked up for Sion, not too unconventional, but does give you a little bit more trading and sustain in lane. Same for the Ornn. We have seen a couple of unsealed spellbooks from the top laner to give you a couple of options as the game progresses, but going back to like in terms of win conditions and team comp options, you know, we talked about how SuperMassive do have a bit more of a team fight composition. Like, they have a very solid mid-game spike around the 2 items, and they can make plays in the early game, but at the same time, G2, they have Ornn engaged, they have Tristana scaling. Akali is no slouch either in these team fights, so I still feel like that SuperMassive, they can't afford to just rest on their laurels. They have a strong bot lane, and they should have push in top side of the map as well. So they need to utilize the early pressure that they will have during the laning phase to build early leads, to then force fights in the mid game where you expect them to be stronger.
Right now, SuperMassive making great use of their bottom lane. Perks playing with fire, but does manage to get the ward down before he walks face first into a Skarner. But you saw Snowflower and Zeitnot zoning Hjarnan and Wadid off the wave. They're going to get level 2 right here, but a little bit late and giving up a lot of early CS there in the exchange. 13-7 the score so far. So SuperMassive bottom lane remaining a strong point for this team on the international stage. Exactly what you would want to see.
You can hear Raz now on the analyst desk. I told you. Gonna smash them in the bottom lane. Obviously, the early level 2 from Zeitnot and Snowflat is giving them this advantage, and they're pressuring it well in the 2 versus 2, building up a very healthy CS lead. And this is exactly what we wanted to see. We were just talking about it. Use your pushing lanes to be able to build up early leads during the laning phase. And you can optimize the Skarner because he can pressure in terms of early ganks. And when I look back at their final, I felt like that they weren't a team that often snowballed a game. You know, they didn't get an early lead and then they just ran away with it. They would often just use early leads to slowly pressure out their opposition, and they're the kind of team that were a little bit more calculated, relied a little bit more on team fighting and a little bit more in terms of pressure and slowly taking one objective after the other, versus G2, who they showed in the gauntlet that they are a very early game focused team, and they get an early game lead and they close games out quickly and efficiently.
The tempo is going to proc. Hjarnan taking a lot of damage. There's the engage coming out. Snowflower going to save his AD carry, but Wadid, no fear. As he moves forward, the stun is there. 3 stacks still up. Hjarnan threatening onto Zeitnot is going to force Snowflower to back up for a moment.
So it's important to note that Hjarnan could have jumped in there, but Exhaust is still available for Snowflower. And with the Ignite already down for Wadid, there is a slight Summoner Spell advantage in favor of SuperMassive, but now Jankos is making his way towards the bot lane.
Here comes Predator. Snowflower wants to find a way out of this one. Headbutt pull, not going to connect there in the end. Now backing off as the Exhaust does drop. A lot of Summoners burned here on the side of SuperMassive, paying the tax on this Olaf gang.
Interestingly, the investment coming out towards the bot side of the map, Jankos was just clearing the bot side, and you notice, okay, a lot of Summoners have been used. I reckon I can force a couple more, and he does get now all of the Summoner spells out from Zeitnot and Snowflower. This is heavily going to mitigate the pressure that they have in this 2 versus 2, and will allow Jankos to make a return gank towards the bot side of the map, should he so choose to.
And the boots, of course, make it a little bit easier for Hjarnan to play this lane, walking in and out of auto attack range. But Varus is going to get it back with a lot more CS here as the lane resets. We'll see if they want to stay and what they want to go for. Both junglers still content to farm it out after Jankos' first gank. See what Stomaj can do to respond.
And we talked a lot about the bot lane and how Zeitnot and Snowflower are really the stars of this Supermassive team, but we got to talk about Perks as well, because if you want to talk about stars, he is the star of G2 Esports, the man that stayed on the roster after so many of the players departed, and he rebuilt this roster around him. Now we see a bit of a collapse in the jungle. It's not going to result in anything. It's like a finish. My hype up.
All right, I'll wait. I'll back up. I'll wait for you to hand.
He's got a bit of a healthy CS lead in the mid lane. He's approaching that level 6 mark. And remember, the thing about Akali is you don't need her to be ahead, but she's still an assassin, right? And so if you're kind of neutral to someone like a Zillion, it can often be very difficult to have the same kind of team fight value that he has, because he's just there to offer utility. So you want gold in your pocket, you want to have those item spikes completed, and you want to use the fact that you're supposed to be a killing machine to your advantage. And the best time to utilize that is in these early levels, especially around the level 6 mark.
And Vedius, I mean, you look at the way Zillion has to play this lane, you really don't get to dictate the pace.
Oh, no.
Akali has all the tools to dodge your bombs. You're really waiting for her to start it off so you can throw some skill shots out. It's a defensive lane for GBM. He plays a lot of defensive lanes. He does. Situation, and we'll see what else he can do as we get further on. For now, CS lead continues to grow. And while it is a bit of a worrying sign, it is not the end of the world for this team whatsoever. Level 6 is just now starting to come in for the solo laners. Skarner's level 6, though, I think the one that we have to keep our eyes on in terms of early gameplay making.
Perks using the laugh. Showing that I can see you, Stomaj. I know you're there. Go away. We have to do it as well. Quick touch on the top lane. Both farming. Good job. Very
Thanks.
easy.
That was fantastic. Good check-in.
Good check-in. Perks. So I was like, wait, what is he doing? And I just remembered, oh yeah, W, you don't get spotted underneath tower. The core mechanic of the Akali, but he does have push in mid, allowing Jankos to go for this invade. He has a level advantage too. Perks isn't moving up with him yet, but I guess he doesn't feel the need to for the time being.
And there's no camps on the bottom side right now for so much to take, so he can't get that level 6 as Skarner, delaying this. Very nice for G2 Esports. For SuperMassive, they managed to maintain a decent amount of pressure on the bottom side. Snowflower not going to be allowed to harass Yarn, and Zite stepping forward, playing really aggressive, knowing that the jungler's on the top side. They want to go in for this play.
Exactly that, Dracos. Smart of Supermassive bot lane, utilizing that they have a jungler in the river. They don't have pressure mid, but they have a numbers advantage bot, so they can afford to go for these trades, and they're coming out ahead, building up a really healthy CS leading, just kind of going towards expectations. G2 getting a lead in mid, Supermassive getting a lead in bot. And for the Varus, this is really important. Now, their summoner spells are coming back up now. So if G2 want to try and kind of relieve this pressure, we need to see another gank from Jankos or a roam down to Perks.
And right now what Jankos is doing is systematically denying every single camp from Stomage. He's taken this entire topside jungle, and Stomage hasn't been able to find anything. He's just now got a Scuttle Crabs. He can go get the blue if he wants level 6, but he's going to get it from lane CS. Jankos has a level advantage and double buff. This, I mean, rarely do we see junglers just win out like this, or at least from what we've seen so far, but Jankos has been everywhere and using that individual jungle advantage to great success.
But it's also a really good example of how to use the pressure that you have in your lanes. The fact that Akali's been constantly pushing has given Jankos a lot of control over topside, and he's been keeping track of what Wonder's been up to as well. The fact that he's keeping the lane in a state that allows Wonder to roam down and assist is really beneficial, and it's given Jankos a lot of freedom to go for these kind of invades. Now he's made his way back towards the bot side of the map, relieving some of that pressure from Hyanan and Wadid. Once they push this wave in, they could look to go for an Ocean Drake.
Perks, though, playing the Predator in the jungle, looking for an opportunity to take out that Skarner. The ulti is there, the Predator is there, but no real defensive stats, making it pretty vulnerable to that Akali, especially that Execute. Fabulous finally getting wave pressure, though, means he can take the fruit, may look to place down a bit of vision as well. For now, a bit of a slower game than we're used to after game 1.
Just a bit. But here comes Fabulous, roaming in.
It comes out, Perks is going to use the first stack of his ulti. Try to clear this. Fabulous is going to keep pushing. Second dash takes him to safety.
Chica roam there from Fabulous won't result in much. Will force the ulti out from Perks, and that's a long cooldown at early levels. So it will alleviate some of the potential kill pressure that the Akali will have, and Perks will just be forced to continue farming up. Now look at the minimap. You can see Olaf making his way towards the bot side of the map again. He will not be spotted on that ward because of the control ward, and Wadid looking for an engage.
Find it, stepping forward, but he's telegraphed the arrival of the jungler. The aggressive movement. Hjarnan feeling a lot more comfortable as he gets a few levels under his belt. Wadid now moving up, faking like he's going to ward. He's trying to play the mind games right now. Will Zite and Snowflower step forward? The answer is yes. Headbutt pull, flash in, wants to get it started, trying to keep the Tom Kent away, throwing down a decent amount of damage. Snowflower, I don't think it's going to be enough. The Grey Health now coming out, unstoppable as they dive under the tower, running him down here in the exchange. First blood dropping, locked up under tower, but the minion is there to keep him healthy, to heal, the flash out to safety. Jankos next on the list is just barely going to live.
Zate not played that as best he could, but unfortunately finds no kills. Now the rest of Supermassive are on their way, but to see if they can help him out and get something off the back of it. Unfortunately, Supermassive find nothing. G2, they draw first blood.
Coming down from Snowflower, maybe he looks to stop him back here, spots every single member leaving the lane, knows this is their opportunity to take control of the bottom side, and gives over the free Ocean Drake in exchange. So G2 have the gold advantage. Supermassive do manage to get something back in the meantime.
Yeah, quick to respond there from the Supermassive duo of Stomage and GBM. But let's have a look at this. Wadid commits extremely hard to this play. We can see that very early on, Snowflower, when does he use the flash? He gobbles up Sightknot, and then he just gets chunked down. Yeah, so he didn't have his flash available. I wonder if that's because he was he had a different summoner spell available in the meantime, which means that it was on a cooldown while he was swapping back. But at the same time, Sightknot throwing his ulti down onto Hjarnan, trapping him underneath the tower, forced both the flash and heal out from him, along with the flash from Jankos as well. So the fact that Sightknot, in a situation where he loses his support, is able to burn 3 summoner spells off the back of it, just goes to show why this man gets so much praise and how he's able to react so quickly in a high-pressure moment.
Absolutely making the best of a bad situation. For now, 1.2 gold lead in favor of 2K. Nothing to scoff at. Only 11 minutes into the game. The Ocean Drake traded will make the tank top lane matchup a little bit easier for the Scion. Top laner's always happy to have that one. Brazilian means he can keep up the wave clear, but not going to amount to too much if they can't transition it into anything else. We're looking for towers, and we're looking for this Rift Herald not to go in the favor of G2 if you are a SuperMassive fan. For now, though, G2 using their control very well. This one should be spotted out. Stomage could go for the contest, but he's been spotted as well. They might just turn this one into a fight.
So the thing is, Snowflower's in the river, and he has the ulti that can quickly rotate up to turn this into a 5 versus 2 or 3. So Jankos very smartly disengages. The Rift Herald will reset. And G2, if they want to set up for that, they need to be able to clear out the vision in the top side of the map, while Zaynot on Snowflower go back to the bot lane, continue their pressure. 20 CS advantage now in favor of Zaynot, really utilizing the strength of this Varus.
And Jankos just continues to threaten here. Sees Zilean leaving the lane. Lane is still even, but Jankos knows that Zillian's trying to contest the Akali. The fight over red buff it doesn't look like it's going to come through. Jankos, how badly does he want these kills? For now, he's just happy to disrupt the Skarner, it seems like, taking away the big Raptor. And Stomage just must hate this guy at this point. They haven't really gotten to fight yet, but they have just been battling over the jungle camps. Perkz now making his way up to ensure that they're going to secure this red buff.
Here comes Wonder as well. Notice how he's going to try and cut off the route from Fabulous. Perkz will be spotted.
Slowed down. Flip's going to take him out to safety. Ulti used from Jankos to make it out. And G2 playing very reserved, but Kali has been locked up. Difficult though, the Shroud already laid down. What's the rest of the map doing? Yarn and Wadid, important to note that they're focusing in on the bottom side of the map. Wonder just doing his best to keep this play going, to disengage, to stop anyone from responding to that tower take. Tower First Blood could go in favor of G2.
So I'm really not a fan of this Tahm Kench ultimate from Snowflower, because they wanted to try and get a collapse onto G2, but G2 top side of the map had already split apart. This just exposed this bot lane tower, and when SuperMassive had so much pressure, they've now given away the first tower blood over to Hjarnan. His gold, or the deficit that he was in due to the CS difference, has now been closed. And it's G2 that have been able to build up now a 1,500 gold lead, and that reaction play from SuperMassive has now cost them pretty big.
Absolutely has. You were kind of hoping the Varus to build a bigger lead here, to get his first item ahead of the Tristana, but now they're going about the same pace. Indeed, now coming down, though, the Skarner is here as well. Perhaps they can force a play on the bottom side of the map. If they can lock up this Tristana, it'd be quite easy for them. A lot of chain CC, but sadly for them, the ultimate not available for Zaynot. It was burned mid lane, as you highlighted, Vedius. It means that this play not really possible at this stage of the game. For now, G2 just slowly continuing to build their lead up, to build their advantage. 2K in their favor.
Now see that the Boots mobility have been picked up for Wadid. He backs before his AD carry so that he can move out on the map to look for a potential play. He can group up with both Jankos and Perkz to either set up for an invade, maybe contest to the Rift Herald, but after the Drake is gone and the bot tower is lost, you would expect Hjarnan to move up with the rest of his team and then look to threaten the Rift Heralds. And SuperMassive, they should swap in kind so to make sure not to give this objective away for free.
And you already see the swap coming in as Varus moves to the top side of the map, and of course Zilean, while he may not be the king of 1v1s there in the mid lane, has a lot of wave clear to stop G2 if they want to go for any kind of push. So Herald really the only objective being focused by both teams, and members being committed across the board as we see GBM TPing back to mid.
Skarner's going back to base. That will give a lot of pressure over in favor of G2, but Snowflower and Zaynot just kind of hanging off in the shadows. I say that as Zaynot shows up in the lane. It's actually him and Fabulous sitting off in the shadows, and GBM making his way up top as well. The Rift Herald clearly the point of focus of both teams. Wonder does have his TP along with Fabulous, so I expect him to go towards the bot side of the map relatively soon.
Stun does connect. Good play from GBM. Connecting the first bomb into Perkz before the Shuriken flip came out. For now, GBM just doing what he can to clear the waves. Rift Herald being started, but not going to be committed to by either side. Wadid looking to throw down. A little bit of pressure here. Still, Zaynot not scared at all to trade with Hjarnan. Heal comes out. Beautiful display from the Varus. Jankos forced to run into this lane to keep the AD carry alive.
Pretty impressive stuff there from Zaynot. Once again, kind of showcasing the potential of this player. Punishing Hjarnan for his mistakes. His Perkz now goes on to GBM.
GBM's going to be forced to use the ultimate here. Does come out. Perkz buying a bit of time. Can't just wait this one out. He has been consumed. Perkz going to use the flash to get out. Fabio's coming down. The Rift Herald's still not going down, though, so Perkz creates a point of pressure and stops SuperMassive from taking that objective.
However, it's a net loss for Perkz because he used both summoner spells for only the ulti of GBM, and Zaynot is still pressuring the top lane with his trusty support, Snowflower. So SuperMassive, even though they're at a gold deficit, still fighting back against the G2 squad. and they're the ones with control of the top side river. Fabulous also has his TP, so should a fight kick off, they can quickly group as a 5-man.
First, it looked like G2 were just going to be slowly in control of this game, but SuperMassive are starting to fight back as they get those first items completed. Varus comfortably on the Blade of the Rune King will look to get a second item here shortly. Stormrazor for Tristana not matching as well as they needed to in those trades.
Gunblade has been picked up for perks though. Pretty big item spike, along with the Rod of Ages for GBM. Really obnoxious item once he gets it completed just because of how much extra health he gets, and you know, you eventually chunk through it and then he has the revival and then, oh look, because I'm AP, I get all my health back. So very obnoxious. He's going to keep building up this mana so he can keep throwing the bombs out, provide that extra bit of utility for his team, while the Supermassive duo will secure themselves their first tower of the game.
Take this one down, matching G2's tower, close to evening the gold up after this one falls. Still a decent disadvantage, however. 1,000 in favor of G2 remaining, and G2 going to respond with an Ocean Drake of their own. Second tower in the game, traded for the second Ocean Drake, but now the Rift Herald in the sights of the Supermassive lineup means that they are going to be able to grab this, potentially take another tower with it if they're given the chance. But GBM engaged on in the mid lane, and oh, the ultimate's not there. Actually coming up just in time. Looks like he still will fall, but Snowflower comes in, a heroic save. Perkz wants to take him out, the dash through, not quite enough. Perkz leaps back to the snow screen. Now Zeitnot is looking to clean through the team. Yanko's incredibly low. Zeitnot very strong at this stage of the game. G2 caught and running. Wadid needs to be careful. Is going to get knocked up, is going to get taken back. Supermassive grabbing a kill of their own.
Beautiful play there from Snowflower to flash in and save GBM at just the last second. G2 end up getting forced into a 5 versus 4 because Hyanan wasn't there, and now Supermassive in control. They have their eyes set on the outer tower in mid.
G2 so comfortable in the early laning phase, but now Supermassive are starting to come online. Gold dead even as the second tower falls in favor of Supermassive. 18 minutes into the game. G2, the clear expected favorites for many European fans. Now you're starting to question, does Supermassive go toe-to-toe?
And this was a mistake from GBM that quickly gets punished. A good flash knockup from Wadid, but his ultimate is already back and available, and he's just buying time. Fabulous with a great flank. Snowflower then flashes in to save GBM, and the exhaust there to stop GBM from dropping. Now G2 have overcommitted for a kill. They don't have their AD carry. And remember, we said at the beginning of the game, Supermassive have the strong mid-game teamfighting team. At one item, they are that much stronger of a team, and they showcased it there. It helps that you have the numbers advantage, but still, Supermassive come out with a big teamfight win. They now lead in towers, but the gold's still even.
And you have to think, if you're Supermassive, you look at that early mid lane phase, a lot of people would go, oh, Perkz is dominating here. But the fact that Supermassive had not let Perkz get a single kill or assist, have eliminated this guy as a threat by just holding him into this lane, by stopping him from making any greater plays, is exactly what they want, and it's starting to pay off as we get further into the game.
And now Supermassive will secure themselves a Rift Herald, so the last few sequences of play have all been made and taken advantage of by the Supermassive squad. And we have to highlight again, it's coming off the back of this duo in the bot lane. Zeitnot and Snowflower, the pressure they're generating in their lane is resulting in big advantages. While it hasn't turned into big gold advantages just yet, the fact that they are the ones dictating the pace of the match, the ones that are in control, is definitely a big deal for the Supermassive squad.
Absolutely the case. G2 trying to keep the pressure up on the bottom side of the map. We're going to have to see what their next course of play is. Do they wait for a few more items on the Akali? What is the next opportunity for them to go in?
Well, for G2, I guess they could be relying on the scaling aspect of their composition. The 3 items for Tristana is definitely going to be lethal. Same for Akali. I believe, based on his items, I'm actually not sure what direction. Like, that's so vague. You can build almost anything with those 2 items. Like, he could go for a Zhonya's, he could go for a Lich Bane, he could also go for
just Void Staff, given the amount
Void
of
Staff.
MR.
He could also go for that. Like, there are so many options. He could. Usually, I would go for a Zhonya's second, but I've also seen many do things like the Lich Bane. But you're right, Void Staff is one. We'll see. We'll keep track of what Perkz is up to as he goes on to GBM again.
Shroud trying to buy a bit of time. How many members are going to get hit by that Ornn ultimate? It's a slow and steady play. The tanky front line stopping anything else from coming out. Perkz now dashing out to safety. Fabulous looking for the re-engage. Wonder trying to knock down a little bit of CC. Hyanan free firing, but the Varus is on the way. It looks like Wonder is just the sacrificial lamb. Yet another one exchange for Supermassive.
And now that's the big engage tool unavailable for G2. Supermassive, they have the Rift Herald. They're grouped as a 5-man, and they can just look to push down this mid.
Supermassive in complete control, denying the aggressive play from Perkz, not giving up anything here. And Fabulous functioning beautifully as that front liner. Second tower now going to fall. SuperMassive still looking confident. Have to play careful though. Cannot afford to disrespect G2 here. Tower charges in. Perkz hungry. Gets pulled back into the stun. A little bit awkward there in the end. And it looks like Inhibitor Tower is going to break. SuperMassive are unrelenting. They are not going to give G2 the time to wait on those item spikes, to wait on that Tristana to scale up.
And this is the thing. G2 are grouped up in the mid lane, allowing SuperMassive to find this fight because, again, they went onto GBM. They tried to find this kill onto the Zillion, and they could not do it. Look, Perkz jumps in aggressively, he uses the ulti, he gets CC'd, and then a great ulti from Stamaged here to prevent any kind of follow-up. And even though the Varus isn't here, SuperMassive have so many tools to go for the re-engage. The Zillion speed up, the Scion ulti, the chase down from the Tahm Kench, and even without the Varus, he still picks up the kill. They still find a successful mid-game fight, and it's just because G2 are forcing fights when they're not strong enough to do so.
And you look at the way these fights play out, GBM denying Perkz a lot of entry to the team fight, and you see Hjarnan free hitting a tank, but sadly, I mean, he's not the powerhouse 3-item, 4-item Tristana. He's kind of just tickling at this point. It's just not enough of a threat to dissuade SuperMassive from going to these engages. And it looks like they will just, uncontested, grab their second Ocean Drake of the game. For G2, the best news they've gotten is that it's only an Ocean Drake at this point.
Very, very true. SuperMassive looking extremely good in this mid game. We talked about how they're not the most aggressive, they're not the strongest early game team, and that was kind of what G2 showcased in that gauntlet, which was that if they do get an early game lead, they're really good at utilizing it. But SuperMassive just kind of played the slow passive game. They haven't allowed Perkz to snowball. They utilize the pressure that they have in their lanes effectively, and they've now got to this mid game point where they thrive. They're good at making the right decisions. They've found opportunistic fights, and they're now the ones with the gold lead. SuperMassive looking good against the third seed from Europe.
Good to see, but of course this game not nearly as decisive as our previous one. 23 minutes and still not the largest gold lead on the face of the planet. About 2K in the favor of SuperMassive. Bottom lane tower now set in their sights. Last outer tower remains standing, and Baron, of course, 23 minutes, but neither team quite enough damage to cut through it immediately at this stage of the game. Wonder, though, knows what's happening, hears the team coming, and hopes that the rest of his team can get something done, because he just has to back off.
So it is the Void Staff that the Akali decided to go for. I'm hoping that he picks up the Zhonya's next, to give him that extra bit of survivability in the team fights, which is ultimately what G2 is now relying on, because I feel like the Perkz hasn't gotten a big enough advantage that he can be this massive side lane threat. He's not going to be able to kill a Scion in a 1v1. Not at this point anyway, and he's not going to be able to kill GBM either just because Zillion doesn't die.
And you got to remember, last time Perkz was playing against Zillion, it was like Kasing, it was a support.
That's true.
It just kind of got one shot. This Zillion has that Rod of Ages you talked about, so much tank here. Doesn't even have an Hourglass, not even concerned about it, and now has a Ludens as well. This Zillion is actually ahead of Perkz in itemization. And the goal is 200 gold in the lead. And after getting demolished in CS in the laning phase, you didn't really expect this to happen, but the team play from SuperMassive is just helping every single member out.
It's 5 towers to 1 right now, Dracos. Like, that's how well SuperMassive have been playing the map, you know, and this is kind of what we talked about. They don't rely on kills. They don't rely on snowballing. It's very much about making the right decisions, picking opportunistic fights, and they've been able to successfully punish G2. But G2 Esports still have an opportunity to come back into the game. The pressure will fall onto Hjarnan. He's going to be the big damage dealer in these late game fights. Obviously, if Perkz can find that assassination, that's going to be a big deal as well, but you're very much relying on the Tristana to be that consistent damage output and shred through the front line if you're going to want to win these late game fights.
It's a bit of a scary position to be in because you see Tristana close to, her 3rd item power spike, but the Skarner tax has not been paid, Vedius. No one on this team is going to be able to QSS their way out of suppression. There's not even a Mikhail's coming for the Alistair. So it's going to take some near flawless execution from G2 in these team fights to actually use their strength until those QSSs start coming out.
It's very, very true. They're just buying time for now. SuperMassive, though, looking really good. And I will be honest, I was skeptical when I watched their final versus the Royal Bandits.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the Royal Bandits lost that final rather than SuperMassive won it. And it felt to me that SuperMassive didn't really have a clear game plan, and it felt like that they were a little bit all over the shop. But I do feel that coming into the play-ins, what they're showcasing is they seem to be a lot more cleaner in how they execute. They better utilize the strength of their duo in the bot lane. They enable them to play aggressively and find those lane advantages. They draft them a strong 2 versus 2, and now it's really paying off for them. GBM hasn't been solo killed. He's not giving away any leads. He's utilizing his deep champion pool and playing for the team. And their star Zeitnot can now be the big carry that can take them to a big upset win against G2.
And just continuing to improve on the legacy of this region, and additionally, like, I think marking it clearly in people's mind that with Vietnam rising up, earning their place in the main group stage, that maybe Turkey is the next in line. Maybe this is the team in the next region that can continue to rise. It's going to take a win here, though, to instill that confidence. They have a 3K gold lead. They have control around the Baron pit, but that is not a win. The next
Here we go. They're
still
kicking it off.
alive. Have to check it. Vision. Where is G2 going to come from? How are they going to play this one? Can Perkz make his way into the back line? It's pretty dark, and SuperMassive instead going to look for the flank engage. G2 are starting to realize what they've gotten themselves into. Predator now coming out. Alti goes in for the Scion. He's trying to drift his way around. Snowflower off to the backside. Perkz now running in, trying to eliminate the members before anything else can happen. Snowflower already forced to use the Devour. Ornn now coming in. Is this the re-engage that they need? 4 members, and then only 2 going to get hit, though, in the end. Fabulous running. Ornn ulti not quite connecting as much as they need to, and now here comes the turn. Zilean speeding up the members. Jankos forced to use the ulti now, pulled back into the middle of the team. Perkz flashing out to safety, no Shroud, not today, and SuperMassive take yet another skirmish in their favor. They might just be strong enough to take the Baron, Ben.
And the drawn-out fight means that Perkz isn't able to find the impact that he was looking for. Good gobble up from Snowflower once again, and with 5 members alive, SuperMassive turn their attention to the Baron.
Keep your eye on that health bar. 12K and dropping. Olaf with Flash Predator available. Maybe able to get something done here. 7K. Wonder, Wadid, Jankos, Yarnin off to the side. Snowflower goes in. He's going to try to stop this from happening. He's not going to give the opportunity. The rest of SuperMassive a little split in their decision, but they focus up on the Baron. 5K getting lower. Jankos yet to burn that flash. They're zoning him out with the Zilean. I don't think Jankos can make his way into that pit. That one's going to be in the favor of SuperMassive. Clean Baron take for the Turkish lineup.
And SuperMassive continue to look good. With only 4 kills total, they have been able to outposition and out-team fight this G2 squad. This is where G2, they didn't realize that the flank was coming in from Fabulous. And then at first you think, oh no, Zeitnot's going to get killed immediately, but Snowflower gobbles him up, takes him to a position of safety, and then this Wonder ulti only hits 2 members. Zeitnot and GBM just hiding off from the backline, doing what damage they can, and with all the assassination tools down for Perkz, he now has nothing. The rest of G2 are forced to retreat. Stamaj flashes in and grabs up Perkz, and as you said, they did not pay the Skarner tax. He did not have the QSS available, allowing SuperMassive to find that kill, have the numbers advantage, and secure themselves the Baron.
For a lot of this game, you can say G2, we see your avenues back in. The 3 items are finally there for Yarnin. You check out that last team fight, a lot of damage done, but to so many tanky bodies, meaning not amounting to much in the end. 2 minutes and 30 seconds is the Baron power play. That's just a survival timer for G2. Can they hold out for that amount of time before they get to play League of Legends again? Because for right now, SuperMassive are in absolute control.
Exactly that, and I'm struggling to see how Perkz can really influence these fights going forward, because so far he's 0-1 and 0. He has not had the same performances that he's had in the past. This assassin has not found a single kill. And whether or not he can even do that at this point in the game will be a big factor in whether or not G2 can find a comeback, because SuperMassive are now sieging onto the base.
Horn has been blown. Zeitnot will get knocked up, but they're just staying back. That's one major engage tool taken off the menu. It means SuperMassive just feel free to approach this tower. It's all too easy. They're going to look to break their first inhibitor of the game. Can walk right into mid lane, too, to continue extending this advantage. Massive, massive lead for SuperMassive. And this is not how you expect younger regions to beat European teams. You expect early, aggressive cheese, but this has been clean and controlled. A beautiful game so far for SuperMassive, and Stomage hungry for a little bit more blood just to close this one out.
They still have the Baron buff. They now have mid and bot secured. And look at how well SuperMassive have played against G2. 8 towers to 1. There have only been 4 kills total in this game. It has been slow, it has been steady, and now with only 1 inhibitor standing in their way, SuperMassive are on track to getting the win over G2.
If you're a G2 fan, you're praying for one of those Perkz moments, one of those clutch moments where he can turn a fight. But the knock-up, the CC is there. They're not going to give him a chance to do anything. Rooted, getting taken down. GBM with the bomb is merciless as they continue the push here. That's going to be the second inhibitor falling. SuperMassive may just be able to walk this one down. It is a last stand here from the side of G2. Their mid laner, their man in the mid lane, the franchise player for this lineup is dead. who will stand up for G2 to stop SuperMassive from entering the game. That's the ulti, that's the combo. Kjornen's on the backside, he's uncontested hitting, but Fabulous is gonna find the knockup. Zeitnot now moving forward, knockback comes through. Snowman's getting taken off to the side, but still Zeitnot remains untouched. Every single member from SuperMassive is up and alive, and Vedius, I cannot believe it. In their first match on the international stage, SuperMassive take down G2.
Massive win for SuperMassive. Outclassing G2 Esports, they found the advantage in the bot lane. They were relentless with their pressure. Every time G2 tried to force a play, it was SuperMassive that were answering back. It was calm, it was calculated, it was steady, and it was clean. Excellent play there from the SuperMassive squad. And G2, it feels like their tumultuous year is continuing to be a little up and down.
Absolutely. And they found a few openings in the early game, but it just was not enough. The SuperMassive bot lane living up to hype, living up to expectations, and then also exceeding them. The team fighting from Zeitnot and Snowflower was impeccable, and a lot of the members we thought might be a little bit weaker, Fabulous, really stepping up, being an engaged source for the team, and G2 could not find a single advantage once SuperMassive started their snowball. And it's a historic moment, Vedius. After yesterday...
What's it with European teams losing in the play-ins? Last year, Fnatic lost to Young Generations. This year, G2 losing to SuperMassive. We're not very good in play-ins, Draco.
No, we're not. But Raz is pretty good at predictions. So for more on that SuperMassive win, let's hear a breakdown from the analysts.
That he is, and I'm not going to be an EULCS apologist here. G2 absolutely got destroyed by SuperMassive, and I think we have to take a look at how exactly that happened. Well, starting from the draft, Raz, you said, hey, the Akali goes through, and initially you said, okay, GBM on a Zillion, I maybe would have liked to have seen something else, but it seemed like they have a good plan.
So my point was a Galio. Ultimately, you want to have a focus on team fighting. Either you control the Akali in lane, or you out-team fight it with a force like Galio. His point was Zillion, so whenever she tries to go in for an assassination, it was not possible with a Tahm Kench involved.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing here for me was the influence of Tahm Kench, because you're like, okay, if you can get Akali isolated in a side lane versus Zillion, there is a way that you can tear this map open, you know, play 1-4 very successfully. But with Tahm Kench, that's just never really possible, because he attacks side lanes so well, and, you know, Snowflower on form this game really did show the control that SuperMassive have.
On the other side, I think that is something that you established when we were looking at the game. However, if you look at G2's draft, you guys talked about strength of the top side. This is filling in those marks pretty good with a very strong mid laner, an active jungler in Olaf, and the tank.
Yeah, and that's what I thought was going to happen. I thought that they would be able to clear super quickly, get priority in the top lane for the Ornn, and then just come peg ultimates at the Zillion all game and try and shut down that mid lane. Unfortunately, that's just not how the mid game played out.
So the windows were incredibly important here, because there was a time where they were moving all the way top side. Every one of them, AD carry, the Ornn was already topside, and then Akali actually pushed out mid, but then where was the Olaf? Olaf was actually taking Krugs on the bottom side, so there was never really concerted effort to go for a top lane tower.
I think that's a good point, and as we look at the first replays, which net an advantage for SuperMassive, I was really impressed by the fact that in TCL, SuperMassive usually racks up huge leads, plays off them, and plays explosive. Here, it was a slow early game, and they held their control for the right moments.
I think aim of the game here is just that control work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, let's absorb the big first hit. Can we counterattack? If yes, let's go for it. If not, we're just happy for the fight to be neutral because our cooldowns are lower, and time again, that's what we saw.
And remember what a point Vedius made on the cast is, looking at a surprise for SuperMassive, it felt like there was none in terms of how they played regionally. Because they're a controlled team at the end of the day, so they can come out explosive, but it always comes around that team fight, that controlled team fight they try and aim for. They were able to get it time and again here.
And I think that they're just confident. I mean, when you lose first turret, there is always the kind of trap of, we'll just send our Varus bottom lane, we'll trade sides of the map, we'll open up the mid game, we've got a stronger mid game. But Zeitnot was like having none of that. He was like, I'm going to match him top side. And from that stage, like, he actually went up 30 CS and took the next turret by himself. This guy's an absolute machine. And I think that's just a really brave call to say, you know what? We left the lane and lost the turret. This wasn't anything that we did in the 2v2. I can beat this guy. Let me have another shot at him.
I'm going to concede a little bit to Raz here, because yesterday I gave you a hard time for calling out Yarn and whatnot, and I don't want to call him specifically in terms of performance. I just want to call out the fact that Zeitnot and Slowflower are just really freaking good.
Yes, and the 2v2, remember, this is a mixed communication lane. And the fact that Snowflower and Zeitnot in a 2v2 when they are behind going topside, you already made a mention of it, that Zeitnot is willing to walk up.
Yeah.
Recognizing that he always has Tom Kench at his right behind him. So that in and of itself, pushing him back to base, Hjarnan had it rough.
It feels like we're not that shocked. Is that, I feel like we're not that surprised.
I made the prediction.
You definitely not. But I also feel, I feel like I get the same vibe from Spawn. We are not that surprised. We always knew Supermassive had the potential, and it's very good to see it come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the big thing that I am shocked about is just how clean it was. Like,
yeah.
Could they win? I was like, yes, I think they can win this game, but I thought it would get a little bit more down and dirty.
Yes.
Kind of like the Dead FM versus Cloud9 game, but they were just so practiced in how they closed it.
Yeah, it was wonderful. They kept the control. Let's take a look at the next fight where then in the end, there was a big skirmish around top lane. It looked like nobody was going to go down. In the end, though, Supermassive get someone down and go for Baron.
This is how hard it is for G2.
Yeah.
Because trying to find this fight, even when they were able to get out fairly cleanly, how are they going to get back in? There are so many beefy lineups that's protecting Zeitnot, who was in a poor position to begin with, that at this point, they don't have nearly enough damage. Hjarnan is incredibly far behind. Olaf is incredibly squishy. And if you look towards Akali, you're not going to be able to get the damage out.
And look at the tools the 80 carries have in that team fight. Zeitnot able to frontline. He has a Zillion ultimate. He has a Knight's Vow at that stage of the game. Just everything going in his way. On the side of G2, they've got a Black Cleaver Olaf that's not doing really anything in the team fight at that stage, and they'd all burnt ultimates already. So, you know, whilst we were critical of Hjarnan, there is no tool that he can use in that team fight to be able to do what Zeitnot was able to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
And I was talking about going into pick and ban, about the Akali bait happening. I know in the LPL, Akali's actually been the champion. You either go towards the top lane, put it to the top lane, or you kind of just not really go to the pick entirely, because you can either take control of the lane with a Ryze or LeBlanc with the confident mid laners there, or you can go towards a Galio or a team fighter and slow the game down. Akali is either sink or swim in that occasion.
I would say in Europe it has been a bit different. Like the mid laners who got their hands on it usually popped off. Of course, famously, Schalke baited it out once and beat it. But generally, they feel like it's a very good pick to go to.
And that's what I was going to say. We're talking about two very different regions. At the best, Europe plays the map incredibly well. At LPL's best, they're just team fighting. I don't think Akali is the best team fighting mid laner, but when you do have the ability to put her into a side lane, it has been very successful.
And that's also what's interesting about Worlds, is that we see how different regions deal with different things. We'll see how it evolves. One thing that is sure is that our MasterCard player of the game is Zeitnot. We hyped up the Supermassive bottom lane before this. Snowflower and Zeitnot are extremely good players, and I'm glad it panned out here.
And this guy had like perfect CS, and then Snowflower didn't eat him at level 3 for some reason, and he still came back and absolutely smashed the game. His teamfight presence is so high. I love frontlining 80 carries. You know, we both cut our teeth at the LPL, and this guy is certainly happy to march forward into a team fight.
Yeah, 2v2 is working out so well because he's willing to just literally face tank the Tristana and force her to back off. So he played so damn well, including in the team fight.
That he did. We're going to talk to Snowflower in just a second. One quick word I want from you guys is what this means for G2. Vedi has brought it up already. Fnatic found themselves in play-ins last year. Also picked up that loss versus Young Generation. For them, it's about staying calm. Nothing is lost at this point, but they are going to take a hard look at this game.
Yeah, what I've said before is that I think in a best of 5, G2 will take it. They just have to learn a little bit more of what they're facing here. And remember, they're in the Ascension group, so they should be able to take down Ascension. And I think if they have that run back versus Supermassive, the drafting will be taken into
But the pressure's on now.
The pressure's there, man.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think they need to take the big deep breath. They forced a couple of plays when Tom Kench was on the map. I said this yesterday about Cloud9. Make waves hit turrets before Calm Kench can have an impact. And I just don't think they really slowed it down enough.
Well, we'll see how it evolves versus Ascension. We do have Avali standing by with Snowflower. Very excited for this one. Take it away.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with SuperMassive support Snowflower. Congratulations on the win. And, you know, after 3 strong showings at MSI, you guys have finally climbed your way into Worlds. So how does it feel to pick up the win today?
능코 선수 우선 첫 승리를 축하드리고요. 이제 슈퍼매시브 팀이 3번의 MSI 진출 끝에 처음으로 롤드컵에 나왔는데요. 첫 승을 거두게 된 소감이 어떤지 말씀해 주세요.
네, 일단 이렇게 MSI 때는 저희가 많은 것을 보여주지 못하였는데 월드 챔피언십은 저희가 좀 더 준비를 많이 해서 더 좋은 모습을 보여주도록 노력하겠습니다.
At MSI, we weren't able to show all the plays that we prepared. So at Worlds, we hope to show our full potential and perform better.
And speaking to showing your full potential, our NA analyst Raz has said that he thinks that you're arguably one of the best players coming into play-ins with your bot lane duo along with Zeitnot. So how do you think you two match up against the international competition?
미국의 분석 데스크에 있는 라즈라는 분이 스노우플라워 선수가 지금 플레이인 모든 팀 통틀어서 가장 잘한 선수라고 이제 평가를 했는데요. 이제 같이 하시는 원딜 선수와 함께 다른 국제 팀의 바텀 듀오를 상대를 어떻게 하실 생각인지 말씀해 주세요.
일단 그렇게 생각해 주셔서 정말 영광이고 저는 그렇게 평가받는 게 제가 여기 슈퍼매시브에 있었기 때문이라고 생각을 하고 저와 저희 원딜 젤러과 정말 호흡이 잘 맞나 생각해서 그대로 하던 대로 하면 좋은 모습 보여드릴 수 있을 것 같습니다.
First of all, I'm really honored to receive such statement, and also I think I was able to get that statement because I was playing at SuperMassive, and I'm really comfortable playing together with my ADC Zelnot, and I think together we have a really good we make a really good teammate, and I'm confident that we can play well against other international bottom duos.
Well, Snowflower, thank you, and best of luck in your next game. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to see Direwolves take on Infinity, so stick around.